Good evening, and welcome to the Mendoza College of Business. I'm Kristen Collette-Schmidt, Associate Teaching Professor of Finance and Associate Dean for Innovation and Inclusion in Mendoza. And it's a pleasure to see you all gathered here today for By Design, Thom Browne on the business of fashion. Fashion is an integral part of our lives and our economy. We join here tonight at the intersection of art and business, where creativity and entrepreneurship meet, to celebrate and learn from the innovative work, experience, and expertise of one of the most talented fashion designers in the industry. Fashion is not just about clothing. It's a form of artistic expression that reflects diverse cultures, values, and beliefs. It's an industry that demands creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurship to succeed, making it a perfect fit for our business school, where our imperative is to grow the good in business to showcase. And it's an honor to do this while also showcasing the work of a distinguished alumnus from our own business school. First, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Martin Kremers, who will in turn introduce our guest of honor this evening. Martin Kremers is the Martin J. Gillen Dean and the Bernard J. Hank Professor of Finance at the University of Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business. A native of Netherlands, Dr. Kremers earned his master's degree from Free University and his PhD from New York University Stern School of Business. His research and teaching areas are investment management, corporate finance, corporate governance, corporate law, business ethics, and Catholic social thought. He is also the co-founder of ActiveShare, an innovative tool for mutual fund management activity that is widely used in the finance industry. Please welcome to the stage Dean Martin Kremers.
Thank you, Kristen, for that introduction and for helping organize this exceptional opportunity for us to hear from our illustrious alum, Thom Browne. I also want to thank our campus partners, the Notre Dame Institute for Advanced Study, and its director, Megan Sullivan, for making this event possible by sharing your artists in residence. Thank you also to Michael Schreffler, Associate Dean for the Arts and Associate Professor in the Department of Art, Art History, and Design, who along with Megan taught a course together, Strong Suits, the Art, Philosophy, and Business of Thom Browne, a course that investigated high fashion through an interdisciplinary lens. On behalf of the college, thank you. Much gratitude to you all for making this evening possible. Now, when Kristen invited me to introduce Thom, my first thought was, of course, I would be delighted. What a great opportunity. Really a great opportunity for all of us to hear from someone who's a true visionary in the world of fashion. My second thought was, what am I going to wear? As a finance professor, I know my pretty severe fashion limitations, but I'm very proud of the Thom Browne tie that I'm wearing tonight, and which tie I like very much, I might add. So, about Thom. In 2003, Thom began his business with 5 gray suits in a made-to-measure shop in New York City's West Village. With each jacket and trouser, he paired a gray cardigan, a white Oxford shirt, a gray tie, and silver tie bar and classic black brogues. The jacket was sharply tailored with a high armhole fit, which I think is another way of saying tight. The trouser was hemmed at the ankle, which is another way of saying short. And this became the iconic Thom Browne look uniform, a complete reimagination of the traditional gray business suit. Now, it might surprise you to learn that Thom is not only a Notre Dame business alum, but in fact, he earned his degree in accountancy here at the business school here at Notre Dame. When you think about it, it makes great sense. Only an accountant would plan a bold new business venture by saying, well, let's shrink for the standard. Thom is the chair of the Council of Fashion Designers of America, a nonprofit group consisting of the top designers who strengthen the impact of American fashion in the global economy. Thom is a former GQ Designer of the Year and 3-time winner of the CFDA Menswear Designer of the Year award. He is known for his modern, innovative approach to design, which has been recognized by the top museums around the world, including, to name a few, the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Museum of Modern Art, the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Costume Museum at Bath, and the, I say this in Dutch, Mode Museum, Antwerp. In 2005, he began expanding his luxury brand portfolio to include full ready-to-wear collections for both men and later also for women. In 2018, Xenia purchased 85% of the company, valuing the brand at about 500 million. He has engineered global public moments while dressing cultural icons of multiple generations, from LeBron James and David Bowie to Michelle Obama and Cardi B. He also engineered a Notre Dame public moment last fall when he organized a Notre Dame football game on the South Quad with a group of students dressed head to toe in Thom Browne fashion. I think you'll find that Thom's story is really a testimony to the power of creativity, individuality, and hard work, which are the driving forces behind his great success and an inspiration to anyone who wants to push the boundaries of what is possible. We also have the good fortune to be joined by fellow alumnus from the class of 1986, Michael Hainey, the former deputy editor of GQ magazine, who is currently a writer-at-large for Air Mail and author of the New York Times bestseller, After Visiting Friends. Michael has generously given of his time as a guest speaker in various Notre Dame classes, including the strong suits course, which I mentioned earlier, and he will serve as moderator this evening. Now, before Thom and Michael come up on this stage, we have a short video that highlights Thom's creative work.
drop.
Please join me in welcoming Thom Browne and Michael Hainey.
Hi, Tom.
It's good to enter in on that. See what you can do?
Thanks all for coming. Tonight, as we said, is going to be about how Thom Browne built Thom Browne. So, but it's sort of how a class of '88 graduate re-envisioned a man's gray suit and turned it into a fashion empire.
Yeah.
And just a note here about the format tonight. Some of you may have been here in October. It's going to be pretty similar. Tom and I will talk for a few minutes, and then we'll make time at the end for questions from you all. And unlike October, we're going to make a little more time so we get as many questions from you as possible. So whatever I don't ask that makes Tom cry, maybe you can find the button to push on him. I'm fortunate to know Tom for many years, so it's fun to be back here together with everyone. Are you ready, Tom?
Yep.
So how does it feel to be back in the business school?
It's great. Well, this didn't exist when I was here, so it's a brand new building. You're all so much smarter than we were when we were here. And you know, it's nice to start off, and I think we start off a lot of these conversations with just some footage of the work. And the film that you just saw was 20 years of work. And when you look at those, you know, I never get bored of seeing it because there's so many stories that go into that 20 years. But in 1988, I was in your shoes. I was sitting here at school, and probably a lot of you are a lot further along in knowing what you want to do. I had no clue what I wanted to do. And I think that was the reason why I wanted to come back and speak, because if I was at school and I knew somebody like Megan and met somebody like Megan and had somebody that came back after years that was in the same, I guess, educational track as I was, and then showed me a world like this, I think leaving school, I think I would have been a lot more secure in knowing that, okay, if I don't know, at least I know that I don't have to do exactly what I was educated in. And I could be open and to letting life lead me into finding something that I think the most important thing in life is finding something that you really love to do and somebody you really that you love to live your life with. And I think if you find that, then I think your life is really good.
So, not to sound like a Freudian shrink, but let's go back to the beginning a little bit. Not with your mother, but more with you come. Yeah, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit because you come out of school, you've got your business degree, you realize you don't want to go into business. You go to LA, you discover vintage clothing, but you try to be an actor. But then, when did you decide you wanted to work in fashion, and what was your first job?
Yeah, I graduated here. I had a job at an accounting firm in New York, which got me to New York, which was great. I hated the job. I quit 6 months later. I thought I have a good friend in LA, so I'd go out to LA and see what that was like. And in LA, you might as well try to act if you're in LA and you don't know what you're doing. So I tried that. I was horrible, got no jobs. And I ended
a job on a Motrin commercial.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, some things. Okay. But the great thing is like I tried so many different things, and I was open to meeting so many different people through that. And then I was just so broke that I thought, I need to get back to New York and just get a job. And the first job was at George Armani, and I was an account executive, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do, and I even asked my colleague sitting next to me how to email. I didn't know how to email. So
There's hope for everyone, see? You leave here with nothing tonight, that's it.
Yeah. But I mean, the job was important because it got me back to, just having a paycheck was important to me and getting me into a world that was interesting to me. Being surrounded by the clothes and also to the people, the creativity, and also too, in the world of Armani, you see a huge business that has been created from that creativity too, which was inspiring.
So cut to 2001, you're 35 at the time, 36?
Yes, yeah.
What was the moment you decided you needed to start your own business? And was there a vision that came to you, or or you just was like, might as well? Was there a burning passion? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I was working at that time. I left Armani and was then with Ralph Lauren and in design at Ralph Lauren. The superpower of Ralph Lauren is he sees things in people that they don't see in themselves, and he hired me in design, and so I got the experience more on the design side of the business, and I really, really liked it. I just didn't like specifically doing it for, in all due respect to Ralph, no one will do what Ralph has ever done, but I wanted to do something a little bit more provocative, a little bit more interesting than he was doing, and so I quit and started on my own.
Okay, which leads the sort of fundamental question for School of Business is, did you have backers? Did you have money? How much did you,
Yeah.
What does that look like? Did you have $100? And what did you do, and how did you start it?
I had just some savings, but just the savings I had from working, and I really started very practically. I started making the clothing specifically for customers and had them pay half up front in order to fund the production and a little bit extra to live off of. And that's how it started. I had no business plan. I had no plan other than I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and if I could self-fund it, I thought that was exactly the way I wanted to do it.
So you had the vision based, as you've said in the past, it's like, I'm going to make a gray suit, it's going to look like this, and it's going to be and I'm going to make that. That was the vision. Did you think, I give myself a year? The bank, my checkbook gives me a year? Was there sort of like...
Yeah. I never gave it
you didn't think that far
thought
ahead?
in regards to timing and a time frame. I loved what it was so much, and I made it exactly the way I wanted to make it and then I didn't go and have any type of financial partner because I wanted to do something that wasn't going to be probably understandable to somebody with money. Here being in the business school, I think it's nice sitting here now because I started with something that nobody liked, nobody understood, nobody could sell, and nobody could afford. So the only one that could was me. But I loved it so much, and I knew that that somebody eventually would get it.
Well, and it's an important moment I want to keep with it, because you're right, it's laughter aside, that, and I've said this to you before, like your singular commitment to the vision and uncompromising commitment, that's what takes you from, as I said to Olivia earlier, zero to Xenia. You never compromised on it, and you stuck with it. But but there you were. You started in your apartment, just making suits.
Yeah.
Got people, but I want to talk about how you got people to look at the suit, because it's also important. Like you said, you didn't have a business plan, and to go back 20-some years, there was no social media. Yeah. There weren't even smartphones yet. And your way of sort of building awareness was what? How did you get?
Me. Yeah,
But tell that.
I just wore it. I made 5 suits for myself, and I wore them myself. That was how people saw it, and that's how, I mean, look, but I wore them, and it was something that was so different than what other people were seeing or what other people were doing, and, you know, I got laughed at. I walked past, you know, children's playgrounds and got laughed at by little kids, and you know, so it wasn't always so great, but I loved it, and I knew that somebody would eventually, and I did have some, you know, friends that I, you know, had to beg to buy something, and but then I had friends that, you know, also were like, Tom, it doesn't even look like it fits you. Why would I want to wear it? So it was a long first couple years, but
you never doubted yourself.
I never did.
You never had a moment where you laid in bed and like,
No.
I'm crazy.
No. It was exactly what I wanted. It was exactly what I wanted people to see, and I think that is the reason why people eventually started to think about, okay, maybe there's something there that I should start understanding, because it was so real to me. And I think that's one of the most important things. One of the most important things is authenticity. And I think if you create something that is truly authentic and truly your own, nobody can take that away from you. Yeah. And or knock it off or steal it, because nobody can be you.
No, and I think there's no one, it's impossible to see a gray suit now and not think that's Tom's, right? It just is, you've changed people's perceptions of how a suit should look, and which is...
Well, I also wanted to set out to do something, you know, a lot more than just making a suit or designing clothing. I wanted to do something that was more important than that. You know, the last thing the world needed was a fashion designer or somebody just making clothing. I wanted to do something that really meant something to people, and it gave people the reason to give it some time of thought.
Well, and what you said there, it reminds me a little bit when we've talked across the years. I think it's important because that's saying I was doing it no matter, I'm not doing it for likes, I'm not doing it for comments, I'm doing it for myself, and that's how it's going to go, right? Which is a very true artist way. When you look at people trying to get into the fashion world now, what do you see, and what do you wish they would know?
The most important thing is to be realistic that it is so much work, and to get in it for the work and not for the end result of maybe being, you know, making some money and making some fame in a way. But I think most likely that's not going to happen. So the most important thing is to get in it, to make something really beautifully, to make something that means something to people, and really moves things forward, and is not just something for the sake of, you know, maybe a pipe dream of being rich and being famous.
Yeah, but that does seem to be a lot of the attitude.
You know, we just live, it's a different world with social media and celebrity. Everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to be a fashion designer, it's going to be glamorous, and it's going to be, you know, all fun, and that's 0.1% of it. And yeah, I mean, we're very fortunate 20 years later that we do get to have some fun, and we do get to, you know, we meet incredible people. But the first 15 years were really hard. I almost went out of business in 2009. I had to beg, borrow, and steal to make sure I didn't go out of business, because everyone was telling me that I should probably declare bankruptcy and close and start over, not realizing that I emotionally could never do this again. There was so much that of me emotionally and personally that went into the first 7, 8 years that I could never have done it again. But I also knew I could never work for somebody again either. So I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how to stay in business, and thank God I did.
And how did you do that?
I was on a plane to Japan, and I had a customer that was willing to financially help me out, and to this day, he's a good customer, and I've been really, really fortunate over the years on having good partners that financially, after I couldn't do it on my own anymore, that financially helped me grow the business. Because as creative as I wanted to be, and that was really important, and it still to this day is where it all starts. It starts from that creative point. But I wanted to be very serious about the business too. I mean, I am in the business of fashion, so there had to be a business to sustain the creativity.
But it seems also that, whether it's that customer or, I always think about life sometimes, and the idea that once you put yourself in motion, some people appear for you.
Yeah.
When you start to pursue the dream, you had your customer in Japan who became, sort of a patron for you. And then when you left your apartment, you had your little store on West 12th Street in the Meatpacking District before it became a high-end outdoor shopping mall, and it was still dead cow's heads in front of your store in the morning.
Yeah, it was the only thing I could afford, because back then it was really raw still. It's not the neighborhood that it is now. And, but I feared being able to afford the rent and then hiring my first employee. But I did it, and it worked, and I still at that point was still running back and forth to work with the tailor that really made all the first collections, and it was a lot of back and forth. I was either in the factory or with Rocco, or I was in Little West 12th Street.
Yeah, but the whole time walking the streets of New York City and advertising.
Yeah.
Marketing without social media.
Yeah, it worked. It kind of worked. I mean, people would come up to me and ask me where I got that.
Yeah.
And some not in a way that wanted to buy it, but at least it started the conversation. It's true. I mean, it wasn't for everybody. But I think when you want to do something important, you have to expect that. You have to expect that people will maybe be interested, but it's not for them. But at least you're starting the conversation and you're provoking something in them that it's more than just you're just wearing another gray suit. That would have been the kiss of death for me.
Yeah, but you also have people like David Bowie walk in the store then.
Yeah, I mean, then, because that goes to the point, like, I knew I loved it more than anyone else, and then I knew somebody would get it, and then you have David Bowie coming, and it's like, okay, I think something's right here. If somebody like David Bowie wants to wear something, then I think that's a little bit of validation. Yeah.
So just to go back to the moment you almost lost the business, just because again in the business world, failure can be more instructive than success. And what do you think you learn most about those moments, about yourself or?
How badly I wanted to not fail.
Yeah.
And I think you have to want to do things that badly in order for things to succeed. You have to love what you're doing so much that you just don't understand what people don't see and why they don't get it. And you have to be your own best salesman. Honestly, you have to be everything. You have to be the designer, you have to be the producer, you have to be the salesman, because no one can tell this story better than you can. And I think that's what I learned. And I also learned that, that I wanted it to succeed.
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as a subversive?
I guess in ways.
A revolutionary? I mean, because it's, I think that's part of what's so intriguing it's seems on the surface
Yeah.
gray suit, but there's a very,
Yeah.
it's affected a lot of change in the world.
Yeah, no, I think, it's important to make people think. It's important to put things in front of people that, will start a conversation. We live in such an amazing world now that people are accepting so much more than 30 years ago. And I think, why not challenge people? And why not do something, take something that they think they understand and give it back to them in a way that they totally don't understand it? And it is so much fun to do that because it drives people crazy. But it's important that we all do that. I mean, it's important that you do push things forward. And I love that. And that's the reason why I do my shows. And that's the reason why you see those, in the film, you see, who would wear that. It's like, I don't really care who's going to wear that. The idea is really important for people to see. And that's the reason why, maybe you see the gray suit a little bit more interestingly, or, the more classic things I do for girls, because of those ridiculous, crazy ideas that are surrounding that classic idea.
Does criticism, the fashion world is the business, got to do 4 or 6 shows a year, everything's reviewed. Mm-hmm. It's made for all, the best of the fashion world is all great, and the worst is worse than ever in terms of like some of the attitudes and some of the sniping. Does any of the criticism ever make you angry, pissed off, hurt your feelings?
No, I'm human, so I would rather people, say nice things, but I also think that I'm doing something wrong if all you're hearing is nice things. So I think you have to make sure that you're doing something that goes to that line of creating enough conversations, good and bad. I'd rather people love it and hate it rather than just like it. So, but I am human. I open up the New York Times and I would rather, it be a good article.
Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
Well, I'm an introvert. Yeah. I like my work to speak for me. I don't really like. I hate talking.
I know.
Michael knows me, so I know I'm talking like a lot, but
No, but why I ask it is, you self-identified introvert. You said a moment ago you got to do everything, including being the salesman, which is a lot of people would think like that's a talking job. That's a sort of like, what's the book that tells me the action words that get someone to close a deal? How does an introvert succeed in the business world?
The work is the way you're an extrovert.
Speaks for itself.
The work has to be what people know you for. And I think that's a lot too, is, hopefully you want to do something that people know you for your work and not just for you. Mm-hmm. And that your work is that interesting. And I love them. Yeah, you would probably see my shows and think I'm not an introvert, but I love the idea that I can hide behind those ideas, and I love doing that.
Yeah. I want to talk I have a couple slides to look at here to get my Notre Dame clicker out. So we talked about zero to Xenia in the moment Xenia took a stake in the company for $500 million. The fashion world has said it's obsessed with success. Do you consider yourself a success?
Yeah, but I think there's still so much to do. So I don't rest on that. I do feel like I've been very fortunate in being able to meet the Xenia family and to then become partners with them because they're one of the few really honorable, Italian business families in fashion that represent, they're really nice people. And I love being associated with them. And they're very conscious in regards to what's important right now in regards to sustainability and just a fashion company that actually treats people really well.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, when you say there's a lot to do still, part of, I would imagine, why you would have taken them as a partner, hold yourself to them as that investment. How many stores around the world do you have now?
By the end of the year, I think around 125.
125.
Yeah.
And you'll keep growing after
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's still so much to do, and there's also part of what I do that is still somewhat inaccessible to a lot of people, and I would love to be able to broaden that in a way that just can open it up to more people. And that is something that we will be conscious of trying to achieve in the right way,
Right.
in the way that doesn't take away from what has been done over the last 20 years. So there's still so much to do, because we still only reach a small percentage of the world. Mm-hmm. And with Xenia, we have the resources to now do it, but also to, I never went about this to make money. I went about this to do something interesting and to do beautiful, interesting things. And I just am very fortunate that it all worked out. But it was never driven by money.
If you look back now, are there key moments that you think that's why it worked out? That that you could say that day and that day and that day, besides going to Japan and getting a backer? Are there other moments that you think were
every day?
Every day.
Every day. Yeah. I mean, every day, and then all the people that work with me, and it all just clicks and it all works. But I think the most important thing too, true success is really just doing something that you really love and doing it really well, and sustaining yourself through that. I think that's what success is. It has nothing to do with money or fame.
What's the hardest part of me to go from working in your apartment, creating suits, we own a little store with fake marble and fake terrazzo floors, and now the real stuff, to go from just being one and the enforcer and the manifestation of the brand to now hundreds of stores around the world. How many employees do you have now?
A lot.
A lot. How do you maintain make sure everyone is in line with the vision across all those people? How do you enforce to do that?
Yeah, the beginning.
That level of excellence.
Yeah, the beginning it is tough at the beginning, but sometimes it's the easiest time because it's very manageable. When it starts growing and you start seeing it all just happening, I mean, the most important thing is to make sure that you keep it as tight and as focused as possible so that it doesn't start diluting. And so it gets more and more challenging as you grow,
right,
as opposed to getting easier and easier as you grow. Uh-huh. So, we talk about it all the time. We have to be the champions of what we want people to see. And if we don't, then how can we expect anybody else to care about it? So it just gets harder and harder because you have more and more people to make sure that they understand what is important. And it's as simple as what it was at the beginning. And I always feel like, too, if you're having to question it before you come to work with me, then it's not going to be your place, because you have to really dive in. And I feel like we do the most amazing, interesting things, and we get to meet the most amazing, interesting people and do the most beautiful, interesting things, but it has to be grounded in that one thing. And, over the last 100 years, in the world of fashion, you know those people that have created something important because you have an image in your head. And that's what we need to do. We have to keep that image really clear and really focused and make sure that we don't screw it up.
Well, when you keep the vision clear, you have
Yeah.
People like LeBron James wanting to call you up and say, let's do this, right?
Yeah, that was very clear. No, I mean, LeBron is a good customer and a good friend, and he's a huge, he's part of the family. And for me, I mean, he can do no wrong. So, but I did this initial introduction with LeBron in the gray suit. I wanted it to be a little bit more of a cultural moment because I thought I was speaking with Dwayne Wade and himself, and I wanted them to represent themselves as a team as opposed to the playoffs as a team, as opposed to individually like they a lot of times do, so that the young kids could see, like, here are these superstars wanting to represent themselves as a team as opposed to themselves. And they did it in the most amazing way. It got a little bit more fashion than I thought, but it was so strong. It was strong because, there's, so superstars.
And then you had an even bigger team,
Yeah,
Barcelona, right?
yeah.
And they now wear, that was wearing the suit for whenever they travel, right?
Yeah,
Which is,
yeah. I mean, athletes are huge inspiration for me. I mean, I swam here at school, so on a very lower level, I understand what it takes to be, an athlete, and especially at that level. I mean, there's nothing more inspiring.
yeah. So we mentioned in the introduction, you're now president of the Council of Fashion Designers of America, which, tell us a little bit about what the CFDA does and what you want to do with it now that you have leadership of it.
The CFDA is an organization that really promotes American fashion and supports the growth of new designers and existing designers in fashion, and also has good social, programs that are important nowadays for just the world we live in. And for me, it's important. After 20 years of the business giving me so much, I thought it was important to give back. And the most important thing for me is to support the next generation of American designers and American fashion, because I think it's time for the next generation to really be given the platforms to become seen and noticed, because there's so much more creativity here in America that the world doesn't realize. Mm-hmm. And also the most amazing diverse group of creative people, which is very unique than from the rest of the world. And it's as simple as that. But I think I'm getting a little bit of a reputation as the tough love chairman, because I don't really have the patience that a lot of young designers seem to want in regards to a little bit of coddling. And look, the CFDA is not a bank. We're not going to be giving you money every time you can't pay for production. It's like, well, if you can't pay for production, you shouldn't have taken that order, maybe, or So there's a little bit of that, and also too, just the realization that this is not going to be easy, and you have to figure it out. And all of the more successful designers in the CFDA, what they can say in their experience is really their experience. Mm-hmm. And it's useful in a way, but you have to really, I truly believe you have to figure it out on your own. You really have to be true to yourself and think, like, what do you really want people to see? And how do you really want to make things work?
Right.
And so that's not always so acceptable.
You said about just because you glided through it, and maybe just to explain to the audience is, the CFDA has traditionally funded people, and they do fund people at different points in their careers as they're starting, right? Yeah. And when you say, we don't want to be a bank, I think it's an important note because, you said in the past, then it just is like you bailing people out rather than giving them good guidance and helping them figure out how to...
It's money that they've already spent most of the time. And so that realization has to be truly understood. And also, too, they just really have to be committed to wanting to be a fashion designer. because it's going to be a lot of work and it's not going to happen overnight. And if you're doing it just to be rich and famous, then you shouldn't be doing it because it's most likely not going to happen. You should gauge your success on just creating something and doing something that's really beautiful and important and sustaining yourself at whatever level with that.
And then you can become so successful that Adidas wants to sue you.
Yeah, it's really fun. Yeah.
Let's talk about that because it's a business problem.
Yeah.
How did you get into this mess and how did you get out of it?
Well, I shouldn't have been in the mess because in 2007, I sat with Adidas and I agreed to change 3 stripes to 4 stripes. We signed, and so, 15 years later, all of a sudden, they're coming after me saying that it's a problem. And the lead attorney in the case was the attorney that was in that office and signed the agreement.
It's almost like they noticed you sold the company for a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then,
But Adidas has so many ongoing cases that they are in the process of, they just can do it. They're a $30 billion company and not doing so well right now, to be honest. And not the most honorable company. I'm saying this because it's true. If anybody has Adidas, oh, I see a couple of Adidas sweatshirts here. No, you know what? I respect everybody's business, and I totally respect their 3 stripes. I would never. And when they came to me and said, it's a problem using 3 stripes, my reference for the 3 stripes was a varsity athletic reference. It had nothing to do with Adidas, even though they seemed to want to claim that it was. I totally respected them, and I totally changed on a dime. I changed to 4 stripes. And then they were going after the red, white, and blue, which I still don't understand. But it was something that I was very conscious of. In 2007, I changed, and heard nothing until 2 years ago. And a lot of money and a lot of time later, we won the case.
by saying you can't trademark.
They don't own the usage of stripes.
Right.
The judge
You can't just say like we own stripes.
They were basically claiming that they own the use of stripes. And if it is confusing in any way to their usage of stripes, then we are going to come after you. And the judge in the courtroom said, you know what, I'm having a little bit of a problem with this because I think the only thing in life that owns stripes is probably a zebra.
So that was before the ruling or after the ruling?
That was during. So Adidas, thanks.
Kind of knew where you were going.
Yeah.
And then I want to just take us through, you talk about the creativity and doing it for yourself and some of these are images from your most recent show, which is in February in New York City, and the inspiration was?
The Little Prince.
The Little Prince.
Yeah.
Why that, and what did how did that land in your mind as the inspiration for that show?
I'm going to embarrass Megan. I was here in November, and Megan so beautifully quoted The Little Prince, and so it was getting to know Megan and just seeing the person she is, and then we all just melted when she quoted The Little Prince, and so that was the inspiration, and that really tells how you never know where inspiration is going to come.
Right.
From, and I mean, I do have the luxury of, with Andrew actually being inspired every day, but it's so nice to be inspired by people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the creativity and the business, they all work hand in hand, but for me, everything starts from that creative moment. Every part of the business starts from that creative moment that makes all the more, conventional classic things that we do makes them more interesting because they say, hey, he does this, and yeah, the t-shirt looks a little bit more interesting.
Right. It's a beautiful show.
It's important to, especially and this is just me, in fashion, to do something that is so much, it's not just about clothes and selling clothes. You know, I do feel like in my stories, it tells something about the world and something that's happening in the world that is a lot more important than just going out and buying expensive clothes.
Yeah, so just to look at that, because everyone, for a lot of outsiders and a lot of people who have never been in the fashion world, they look at it, you know, they see clothes coming down the runway that look like that. And they say, well, who's going to wear that? What's that? What's the point of that, right? No one will ever buy that. And the answer is, it's an artistic statement about word.
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, we do have people that do buy these things and wear them. So it is, there is that reality. But the 30 or 40 ideas that I put in front of people they have, in my mind, I am not thinking commercially at all. I could care less if somebody wears it. It's an idea that is just people seeing things differently and keeping what I do and keeping myself interested and not boring myself. So it just keeps people thinking and talking and loving it, hating it, just keeping it all moving.
When you look at the fashion business now, and you mentioned like the next generation coming up behind you, what are the opportunities you would see for people in terms of the business and where they could go and what needs to be done?
I don't know. I hope just for their sakes that they're doing something that they love and that is truly theirs, and
Right.
and just challenging themselves to do something that is important enough to spend all the time and energy doing.
Yeah. I'm going to do a quick speed round and then we'll move on.
No, really?
Do you have a nemesis?
Michael, this stinks. No.
No. Okay. No one in the fashion world who drives you crazy?
What?
No one in the fashion world who drives you crazy?
Oh,
Okay.
no.
See? So I'm be sure people know.
Okay.
You're a nice guy. Do you have a vice?
I don't think it's really a vice, but champagne might be a little bit of a vice.
What's been the biggest influence in your life?
Probably Andrew. Yeah.
And who's taught you most about the craft and what you do?
Andrew. Andrew and Rocco. I have to give Rocco credit in regards to learning how to make clothes.
Will you explain just a little bit for who Rocco is? And I think it's what I love about Rocco is it's, again, the people that you meet and you get fortunate to meet him if you go into business. And he's basically, as you said, the most important employee you ever had, really, right?
Yeah.
And who was he?
Rocco was the tailor that that really started everything with me.
It's like a 60-something-year-old Italian man out in Queens, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And he was, I think, the best tailor in the world. And I met him and went to him to make my first suits, and he rolled his eyes and he asked me why. But the beauty in Rocco, he asked why, but he didn't refuse to do it. And so I got the perfect combination of, I thought something interesting, and then the most beautifully made interpretation of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, he did everything. He did all the collections for the first 15 years. So, and I think it was fun for him too, because he, being a very classic Roman tailor, got to do things that really pushed him into things that he got to make a three-legged trouser. When would he ever have thought that he was going to make a three-legged trouser?
Never. How did you discover him?
I asked somebody I was buying fabric from at the beginning. I asked, and they sent me to him.
Yeah.
He's very known in New York,
Right.
from a lot of designers.
Yeah. And he's retired, and then,
He's retired, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he taught me so much. And not only just clothing, he was just so wise. And he put all of my guys and girls through the ringer. They would all go out to do things with him, and he was so tough.
In what way? Like it just,
You had to earn his time.
yeah.
He was so great and so tough.
Should bring him as the enforcer back in.
Yeah.
Just a couple word associations. When you, Chanel,
What about it?
what do you, what does it make you think of?
Oh, the best quality. When you aspire to create an image like she did, and that's why when I talk about my beginning, it was the first 15 years was trying to achieve something like that, so that you could last for hundreds of years because it is so clear on what you set out to do.
Favorite artist?
Favorite artist?
Artist.
I think right now Milton Avery.
Why?
And then Sargent is always
Yeah.
Milton, I don't know, there's just something. I am not an art historian. I don't really know much about art, but I do know what I love. And, it just, I know when I see it.
Great. Well, I'm going to pause here because I'm going to make time for you all to ask questions out there. So if we want to think.
Sure. So first, I want to thank Michael and Thom for being so generous and with your time and engaging with our students and our audience members in this way. So surely this great conversation has sparked some curiosity. So we're going to kick off the Q&A session with some of our students who have some questions prepared. We'll ask you to come on up to the microphones, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the audience soon.
And I'm going to be the bad cop before everyone starts. More people get to ask questions if you cut right to the question. So you've all seen the debates where people want to say something. So let's make sure we get as many people in, and we'll get more. So, and just give your name when you step up. And
sure. My name is Taya, second year MBA. Thom, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to see you. Question we have for you is, how does Thom Browne plan to expand its offerings to digital services or digital offerings as the other luxury brands have expanded into different quote-unquote multiverses or metaverses? Do you see yourself expanding into other digital offerings as well to create a physical and a digital experience alike?
Physical, there's a lot of plans we have.
Yeah.
The whole digital world is so new, and I think it'll be interesting to engage in it I'm old, so it's very new to me. And I still don't always understand it, but I think it's important just to understand it in a way that's relevant to us. So that's in the more digital world. In the physical world, there's so much to do.
Yeah.
We're still operating at such a high level that sometimes we all do look at each other and think like the reality is there's so much of the world that we would love to do things for, and that will be the challenge in the next 20, 30 years, to do it in the best way so that you actually still feel like you're getting the same thing.
Yeah.
And that's the ongoing challenge, for anybody that creates something that is really special at the beginning, is to make sure that you don't lose that along the way.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jocelyn Orlando. I'm a junior studying management consulting in Italian language. My question is, how does Thom Browne as a brand work to uplift the voices of Black creatives and other marginalized groups of creatives?
Well, that's one of the biggest initiatives at the CFDA, is making sure that everybody has a voice and everybody's voice is heard and appreciated. And one of the things that is so important to me through the CFDA is that the world sees that the strength of that diversity in voices that is truly unique to America. When you travel, like I do shows not only in New York, I do them in Europe as well, and the diversity here in America is really special and is really talented. So it's one of the most important things that we do at the CFDA.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thom, thanks for being here. So I'm DT. I have a quick question. So what made you pick color gray over any other colors? And I know another fashion designer, Giorgio Armani, he uses a lot of different shades of color gray. So you started working for Armani. Were you inspired by his design to use color gray, or what was your inspiration?
Wasn't really inspired by Giorgio Armani, but he's inspiring, of course, because he's created what he has created. Gray for me was, because I didn't really come from a fashion background. I didn't come from, as you know, I didn't come from the fashion schooling. So for me, gray was very personal, but also too, it almost represented non-fashion. And I thought there was something really strong in that and representing that in a more fashion way.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Raleigh. I'm here representing the Cloud Institute for Civil and Human Rights. My question is, what steps are currently being taken in the fashion industry and in your brand specifically to ensure ethical labor practices and transparency in your supply chains? And are these steps enough? And if not, what needs to be done? What types of regulation, incentivization, or advocacy need to happen in order to create positive change?
I think it's important that we all do address it, but the most important thing is in our own way, that it's not just talk, and you can actually do something about it. Because I think, unfortunately, what you see is, or hear, is just a lot of talk and not enough people actually doing things about it. And so for me, the most important thing is we address it in a personal way that we actually know that we can actually make the change as opposed to just talk about it. The one thing with Xenia, they've been very responsible in regards to all of those things for so long. So I do also have the power of being with a company that is very socially responsible too. So, but the most important thing, because I'm sure you see through your studies that you see so many people talking about it, but there's still so much of a problem out there. So there's not enough people actually doing things about it. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Hi, my name's Sophie, and I'm a junior majoring in marketing. My question is, in our post-pandemic world and as we've moved into a hybrid work model, how do you think your brand has been able to straddle both the more professional and casual settings, and how do you think the work-life uniform will continue to change?
I hope we get back in person a lot more. I hate Zoom meetings and Teams meetings, and I'm in the minority that would like everybody back at work 5 days a week, because I think there's so much to working in person. I don't know, I don't think through the pandemic, we kind of did, it was like, business as usual in this bizarre way. We were back to work very early and making sure that everything that was being designed, that was in production, was still, as well as it could be, was still moving forward. And so we didn't approach it differently, other than we had to do our shows virtually. We had to, do films, which I loved. Not everybody loved it, but we approached it differently. But we are very interested in getting back to learning what you learned through the pandemic, but making sure that we get back to just doing things in the best way. Mm-hmm. I don't know did I answer the question? Did I? Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you.
Hi, Tom. My name is Luis Osamanubis. I'm a senior majoring in art and computer science.
Yeah.
I'm also part of your strong suits class.
Yeah.
So my question is, when you work at a large scale, you have to collaborate with so many people to make your vision come true.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that when you share your vision, your collaborators stay true to your vision? And how much, if any, creative freedom do they have to interpret your vision when they're the ones executing certain aspects of it?
Well, I mean, because design is such a collaborative effort. You can't look at what you've seen and think like there's only one person that's doing that. I have the luxury, I have the most amazing team. So I, give them as much freedom as possible that they feel like they can really bring as much of themselves into it. But I'm very clear at the beginning on what I want to do. And, through the years of working with people, it gets easier and easier because they know me and I know them. But it really comes down to working with people that, one, are good, and two, that that you respect, how they will be doing things. So it's the type of thing, like at the end of a show, there's 60 people that should come out and get the credit because there's so much that goes into, that one idea.
Thank you.
We'd like to invite other audience members to come down to either of the microphones and ask a question.
Hello. You mentioned that everything in your business starts with these creative moments. And so I'm wondering if you've noticed any patterns about where, when, or how these creative moments are sparked. And specifically, have you noticed that there's any patterns within like your environment sparking these creative moments, whether it's like you're here at Notre Dame, like your time's spent here and how that's impacted your creativity versus being in the meatpacking district or LA? That sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it comes from everywhere and anywhere, and you just have to keep your eyes open to appreciating all of it. You never know when it's going to happen most of the time, and you just have to be open to being able to recognize it. But you can't, I don't sit down and think like, oh, I'm going to design now, or I'm going to get that idea now. It never happens when you actually sit down and try to think of something. But I think that's what the beauty is that, you never know where the references or the inspiration is going to come from, or, all of it. And it keeps, sometimes it gets a little unnerving when you have to get a collection in a couple months and you still don't have the idea. But in some way, it always happens, or at least it has up until now.
Quick follow-up. Do you keep like a sketchbook with you when these moments are sparked? Or
I like just things in my head. I don't take pictures. I don't work with mood boards or with physical, references. I like to sometimes just close my eyes and think of something.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry about that. Hi, Thom and Michael. I'm Isaiah. I'm a junior here in the business school. And Thom, I'm sure you've had many mentors throughout your life. Are there any lessons that you wish you knew before you graduated here at Notre Dame?
I would have loved to have had a professor like Megan. I would have loved to have, heard a little bit more of what you should practically be doing, as opposed to what you never know. There's so much that you could be doing. And just to have, I don't think my eyes were as open until I actually left school. And I think but the school it was a different time. It was a different time, and now you live in a world that is so open, and you guys have the opportunities to see so much, and to experience so much, and to question so much. So I think the one thing, because I loved my time here, and I appreciated it so much, but I really appreciated my time when I left, and I started to see I started becoming more of myself, but also, too, I started seeing more of the world.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Jennifer Burr. My question is, during your time, or as you sit with the CFDA, and you're looking for new fashion designers, are there specific things that you look for, like a checklist, or is it just you're inspired by something you see, or how does that process work?
Yeah, we're not really looking for new designers. We're hoping that it just happens, and we recognize them through the work that they're doing. It's not, sometimes I think there's too many people that are setting out on their own and becoming fashion designers, as opposed to actually learning on somebody else's dime for a while so that they could actually learn a little bit more and see a little bit more and see how, as unglamorous as a lot of times it is.
Like your path.
Yeah, and then realize, like, okay, am I ready for this? As opposed to immediately going out on their own, and it's really hard, and especially right out of school. I mean, I couldn't imagine. And so, but our responsibility is to embrace whoever is and hope for their success. But, letting them know the realities of what they're getting themselves into.
Okay, thank you. You'll be hearing from me.
Hi, Tom. Thank you for being here. My name is Zach Libero. I'm a 1L at the law school. And my question is, working in both the fashion industry and the business world, how have you seen LGBTQ plus representation flourish, or how have you observed it get better in terms of, especially in the business side of things, it being more heterosexual, the societal norms? How have you seen that expand in the 20 years you've been in the industry?
Well, the fashion world has always been very accepting. So I think we've had the luxury of, almost not being that much of a challenge. It's been so accepting, and on both the creative end and in the business end. So I think the world has changed so much in the last 20 years. So, that has changed a lot. I mean, the idea of guys wearing skirts 20 years ago was a little less accepted. Now, we can't sell enough skirts to guys. So the world has changed a lot, and I think we do, in the fashion community, I think we've always been very accepting. So it's a great world to be in.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom. My name is Megan Carlson. I'm a first-year accounting student. My question is, what's your favorite design you've ever produced, and what's the meaning behind it?
I probably should say my first gray suit. It's so hard to say what's the favorite, but it all started from there, and it's so true to what I want people to see in all its iterations. So probably that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maddie Murphy. I'm a sophomore majoring in finance. I was wondering, what is one thing that Rocco has said to you that really resonated with you throughout your career?
Rocco wasn't really a talker. He was.
That's why you two got along.
Yeah. No, he just worked, and he was that beautiful type of person that he just wanted you to see what he did. And we only had one argument once, and he was a perfectionist. And I was lining a jacket in a pleated fabric that had a line throughout, every 3 inches it had a line. And he was a perfectionist in that everything matched, and every seam, every pinstripe matched. And I came to the factory in the morning, and one of the lines in the lining wasn't lined up. And I looked at it and I was like, Rocco, do you think maybe we should try to match the lining? And he took the jacket and threw it from me, and didn't say anything, and didn't talk to me for the rest of the day, and then came back the next day and it matched. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm Andrew Kim. My question is, so what do you think are the crucial elements to nurture our open-mindedness or like creativity, or like what are the ways to create, like what are the ways to become a force for good?
I think the most important thing is you just start creating. It's like if you want to be a writer, just start writing. If you want to create something, I think you just start creating. And don't like get off your phone, don't look at magazines, don't look at anything, just like purely create from your own head. And don't have any references around. Use your own, like we all have references in our head from things that we've seen, movie, art, and everything. But I think when you don't have that as a crutch, it makes it so easy to create something that is new, that's original, that's yours. And I think the most is just to start doing it.
Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Michael. I was wondering, how do you respond to some of the negative stereotypes about your clothing that you make? Because like in my home country, Korea, like there's like a stereotype that only like jerks or idiots wear Thom Browne.
Who?
Like,
Did you say jerks or idiots?
Who? What?
Like you know, like some bad boys only wear Thom Browne, like, you know, like back in those days when only like bad boys would wear Burberry in UK.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think same kind of things are happening in Korea right now.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh. I thought we did well in Korea. I mean, I hope they're not that bad. Because I love Korea, because Korea has really always embraced what I've been doing, and I don't know. That's the first I'm hearing of it, because I thought they loved it in Korea.
No, I feel like it's more like I think personally it's really mainstream that like there's like some kind of stereotype about your brand. So I was wondering if you noticed.
Okay, we'll look into that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Simon Elkins in the MBA program. Thinking about kind of business as fashion as a creative point, and then fashion as a business. You were mentioning in the Adidas lawsuit, you had the respectful point of the free stripes and the agreement with them. Yeah. When you have some of these lawsuits of Adidas protecting their free stripes, or Christian Louboutin protecting the red bottom of the soles of the shoe, how do you balance that as the brand equity value that comes from that as running fashion as a business, but that limiting some of the creative abilities that you can do as a fashion designer?
Yeah, I mean, the whole legal aspect around design, and you can't copyright design, so, you have to, the most important thing is that you create things that are, truly authentic to yourself, so that people can connect and attach themselves to what you're creating. The four stripes is a more outward, overt way of, branding in a way, and over the years, it has become something that people do associate with me. So in all due respect to their three stripes, I mean, they created it, and I think everybody should respect that. I think in a way with the four stripes, I think people should respect it in my world, and I don't really know how to answer it other than the most important thing is that you're creating something that is yours, and that you're not overly referencing somebody else's work when you're trying to create something of your own. And that's a little bit goes into sometimes the way that designers work when you see the references that they use, and then in the work that you see, it's hugely overly referencing, what they're referencing.
I think there's that line.
I don't know how to say it other than, yeah.
Yeah, there's that line between I'm inspired by it or I'm stealing it, you know, and that's where it's that version of the Supreme Court ruling on pornography, you know, when you see it, so it's, but it's, that's sort of area for the courts to decide, but I think most fashion is, I mean, why doesn't Adidas sue everyone who's basically knocked off the Stan Smith white sneaker, but they haven't because everyone has just kept evolving it, right? So, and you can't, but it's, who can, again, it's a white sneaker, no one owns that, right? But, so.
Hi, Tom. My name is Jack Dillon, former alum. I have a question for both of you guys, actually. Were you guys friends in college? And if not, when did you meet and how have you leaned on each other in your friendship in your own respective careers?
Jack used to work for me. Hey, Jack.
Hey.
We met when I was at Armani, I think.
You met Brooke when you were my wife when you were at Armani, and then I met you, no, it was right when I was at GQ and you had started the store, 2001. Oh. Yeah, but Brooke had known you because my wife was a fashion buyer for Marshall Fields, a fashion department store in Chicago before she moved to New York, and she used to go to New York, and Tom was the Armani rep that she. So you guys go way back. But no, we did not know each other in college, and then we just met. I think Brooke kind of Brooke and GQ brought us together, and then we sort of were lost brothers after that point. So, thank you.
My name is Annalise, and I'm wondering, what's a beautiful and interesting element of human nature that's particularly striking or inspiring to you, like right now?
It's a beautiful day out today. Every day, I think it should be an inspiration. Being healthy and being with people you like to be around, being with someone you love, and I think that's inspiration.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rahman, Master's of Business Analytics. I just wanted to ask, as a public figure and a leader of a business, how do you or your team deal with failures or mistakes because it's so public?
Deal with what?
Failures or mistakes.
I still don't understand.
Failures or mistakes that you make or your team makes.
Failures or mistakes.
Sorry. We just do. I mean, I think when you have to expect, mistakes and learn from mistakes. And I think when you do interesting things, I think you have to expect, but also to own your mistakes. And I think the most important thing is owning your mistakes and your successes. I think but you have to expect, the mistakes and failure.
Maybe it's the Rocco model.
Yeah.
Just get it done the next day.
Yeah. But it's important to expect them because they will happen because it's not always great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrew again, because I forgot to ask one more question. So, I'm also from South Korea, and so I would like.
Oh, are you gonna counter?
Probably not all people would think like that. And the question is that we never get. I think we never can achieve the state of perfection, but often people get preoccupied with it and stay depressed. So how can we get away from being a perfectionist and get satisfied or feel happiness in our life?
Yeah, you're never going to achieve perfection, but I think there's something important about trying as hard as possible to do as best and as good work as you can, but perfection's never going to happen, so just to be comfortable in knowing that that's just the reality.
So we should cherish the process itself.
Right? Yeah, you should really love the work that goes into it, and maybe the work being more important than ultimately what you're creating, because the work, you should love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Grace. I wanted to know if your family was supportive in the beginning and when you convinced your dad to wear one of your suits. when he first
Yeah.
wore your suit, or if you involved your family in the beginning, did they model for you?
Oh, yeah. No. Don't tell them. No, they were always so supportive. There's 7 of us, and my mother and father were always so good at making sure that we could do, that we knew that we could do anything we wanted, but they just wanted to make sure that we worked really hard to be the best that we could be at that. So they were always supportive. Fashion sometimes didn't really they were both attorneys, so they didn't really understand it. My father came to one of my first shows and he said, "This is amazing, who did all this?" So in a very charming way, they just appreciated that I was doing something, one, that I really loved doing, and they saw it working a little bit.
Do they fight over your samples? Like, do they want your
No,
No.
It wasn't really for them. No.
Okay. So did your dad ever wear one of your suits?
No.
Hi, Tom. My name is David Wozniak. Quick question. Do you have any habits that you attribute to your success?
Any?
Habits?
Habits?
You have habits.
Do I?
Yeah, you're very structured.
Yeah, no, I guess it comes from, I think maybe from my
You
time
have your
swimming.
routines.
I'm very rigorous and I'm very structured, and I'm not afraid of hard work, but I do like things very organized and structured. Sounds so boring, but thank you.
Hi, my name's Jody. Sorry, I have limited experience with microphones, so hopefully this is coming across well. Over your career, I know you mentioned recently your favorite artist, what art you like, but in the fashion industry, has there been a designer that you've really been inspired by and loved over the years who's been doing amazing things? And on the other side of the coin, is there someone you've been seeing now that you're inspired by and you're hopeful for the future of fashion and what everyone's going to be doing? I know that's multi-part, so whatever you feel like answering.
No, it's, whenever you say someone specific, then you always forget somebody, so you always want to kind of not always be so specific. But in the past, there are people, over the last 100 years that have done things that are so important that you do realize why they were successful, because you still see it today, and they're bigger than ever. So that is always inspiring, and what's inspiring to me is some kid that's hand knitting a sweater, and it's so beautifully done, and he doesn't care about selling, a lot of sweaters. He just wants to knit those sweaters, and I think that's where it starts. That is inspiring when you see somebody that doesn't really care about the commercial part of what he hopes to get into yet. What's important to him is that he's doing and he's concentrating on what he needs to concentrate on now. There's so much of the fashion world that are immediately, because he's really talented, his name is Jacques, but so many people are trying to push him into growing already. And I'm like, Jacques, don't listen to any of them. Because people need to see this as long as possible, and they need to be able to maybe acquire this as long as possible, and then you can then make the decision to, grow in whatever way. So that's inspiring.
Awesome. I will be on the lookout for Jacques.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Michael. My name is Devaney, and I'm a senior studying marketing in Mendoza. And I think as a consumer, it's easy to see the difference between kind of like runway and reality. But when you're designing, do you find yourself either subconsciously or consciously categorizing your pieces into kind of more traditional, palatable pieces for the general public? And then like kind of the more avant-garde, interesting art? Or do you consider it all art made equal?
Specifically for the collections and what you see in the 40 ideas in a collection, I do challenge myself to, not think commercially at all, and to really just put interesting ideas in front of people that can then be derived into more commercial things that I will have in my showroom. So in the shows, I never think commercially.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Anna Kulczycka, and I'm in my third year doing business analytics and graphic design. And I want to ask you how you see industry and function. What advice would you give to somebody who's found a spot in the industry, but maybe doesn't know their function quite yet? And how did you navigate that? And what advice would you give to somebody who maybe doesn't have Ralph telling them that they need to be a designer?
I think just be yourself, and kind of. You say you have a job?
I have an internship.
Oh, you do? Oh, great. That's great. I mean, that is a great start, because you do actually see the reality of what happens in fashion. And as you probably have seen, maybe it's not as glamorous sometimes as you may have thought before you got there. And I think that's a really good, realization. But you have to figure out, is it something that you really like? And if that, the best thing you can do is work really hard and just show that you want to be in this and you want to work really hard.
Thank you.
That's always recognized. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Misha Lee. I'm a junior majoring in marketing and minoring in design. And the question I wanted to ask was for anyone entering the fashion industry or just getting experience for the first time within the fashion industry, what is one piece of advice that you would give?
I would say, get an internship and find out if you really want to be in fashion, and see what actually is happening. And then just know that it's going to be a lot of work. It's not, all what you see in social media and through celebrities and in the glamorous side of it. It's a business, and it's a serious business. It's a very huge money-making business that has the creative side to it as well. But it's a very serious business that can be a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we're finished with the Q&A. Yeah, so I thank everyone in the audience for your enriching our conversation. Thank you, Thom and Michael, for your generous time. And I think we're gonna.
Thank you, Michael.
And we're gonna hear from Megan Sullivan to wrap it up.
You guys will just hang out for one more minute. My name is Megan Sullivan. So I'm the director of the Notre Dame Institute for Advanced Study and a professor in the philosophy department here. I saw a lot of philosophers in the audience. It's time for thank yous. We've been so thankful to Dean Martin Kremers and the Mendoza College of Business for hosting this discussion tonight. It was absolutely a team effort working with Thom and Michael to get this event on. Kristen College-Schmidt, Angie Appleby-Purcell, Scott Graham, Christian Olson, Jeff Tolley, everybody at the NDIAS has worked night and day to try to make the magic happen with this discussion, and we are so grateful. We're also grateful to Michael Hainey, who has come to campus 3 times this year to help teach us Luddites how to read the world of fashion and make us somewhat more sophisticated. And this is the only time in those 3 times where the weather's been actually very nice. When we had him out here in January, it was like death. So we're very, very grateful to Michael for donating his time and his insight to our community. Tom's entire team, Olivia, Matthew, Jonathan, they have been extraordinary partners to us this year. They've offered incredible access to our students, and they've really made some of our wildest fashion dreams come true. I think a conversation that we've been having with Thom for the last year and a half as we've been planning this is how much we long at Notre Dame to make our students' dreams come true and to really open up their worlds and have them believe when they're here with us on campus that absolutely anything is possible. And I am not exaggerating in the least when I say that this artist in residency year has been a dream. It's sometimes like a fever dream. Thom's residency at NDIAS has made it clear to everybody that has been involved just how much hunger there is at Notre Dame for serious engagement with the world of fashion and design. I think a lot of people mistakenly assume that the biggest fashion statement coming out of Notre Dame involves like the throwback shamrock football outfits or when student council releases the shirt each year. But we discovered as soon as we announced Thom's residency last summer that there are so many creative and absolutely brilliant students that are in our midst. Many of them are with us here tonight. You heard from some of them. We have students who make their own corsets, students who design bespoke jackets. We have editors of campus design magazines. We have many students who make arguments with the looks that they carefully cultivate, and they're taking risks to find new inspiration and to have difficult conversations using fashion as their medium. We met students through this year who are semi-professional photographers or videographers and are now at the dawn of what we think will be pretty remarkable creative careers. And we also found plenty of students, you also heard from some of them tonight, who are already scheming about how to turn the physical world of fashion into the virtual world of art and design. It's absolutely amazing. And a year ago, we were hopeful when we started this residency with Thom and Notre Dame that he might be willing to join us for 1 or 2 campus talks like this, that maybe he would be willing to Zoom with some classes. And in fact, he has been willing to unlock the doors over the course of this year to how a legacy American design brand in the 21st century works. I should have known, and I knew as we've gotten to know Thom through his residency, that he doesn't ever just dip his toes into a project. I think you guys have that sense here tonight. His catchphrase, which he didn't use at all in this event, is, "Why not? Why not take it up a level?" And he really brought that spirit with us to campus. In October, during one of his visits, as you saw, he brought his annual touch football game, which usually happens in Central Park, to South Quad, featuring dozens of students that were dressed to the nines in extremely expensive football outfits, playing touch football. That gave us the opportunity to break the internet and was covered in Vogue and other major fashion outlets, much to the pride and amazement of many Notre Dame students and their families. In February, he welcomed our Strong Suits class to New York Fashion Week, where we had front row seats for his transcendent interpretation of The Little Prince. The show was inspired by conversations that he had here on campus, and I don't know if the students can tell you if they were more amazed to see beautiful art being created in a moment, up close and personal, or all the selfies that they took with Queen Latifah and David Harbour and other very famous people at the after party. But it totally rocked their worlds, and ours. Over the course of this year, Thom and his incredible staff and his family have connected our students with absolutely every aspect of this major business. From his head of design to celebrity clients like Lindsey Vonn, who have Zoomed with our students. He has opened our eyes and taught us how to read fashion, and we are incredibly grateful that Notre Dame has been able to provide this opportunity. Thom, your visit here has opened up new vistas for how our campus can be more involved in art and business and how this generation of absolutely remarkable students might pursue their own dreams and 20 years from now be sitting in your seat, lecturing them to work harder. We have a gift for Thom, but it's still in process, where we've made a book with all of our moments and experiences working with Thom and his crew this year. So we wanted to include this, and tomorrow, Thom's speaking to some classes tomorrow, in the book, but we're going to be sending that. Until then, we'd like to just thank you and thank Michael and your team from the bottom of our hearts. We hope that events like this year are beginning a new era for art and design here on our campus, and we'd like to just give you one last round of applause. Thank you. members who have stuck it out until the very bitter end are welcome to join us for refreshments out in the atrium after this. And thank you all for coming tonight. This is wonderful.
Thank you.